This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, okay. Do I? Okay. I need to picture us. Yeah. Okay. All right. We ready? Good afternoon. As stated in your letter, tonight we'll be going over, ma'am.
Turn your volume up.
Turn your volume up.
Anybody else here?
Turn it up.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you. Let me just see if the volume is down. Hold on a second. Did I turn it up? Do I? Yeah. Everybody. That right there. That right there. Huh? Yeah. Do I have it too loud, Terry?
I think maybe it's the mask. I don't know. She's all muffled.
I can hear her.
Hear me?
Okay. Who's
Yeah,
the-
I can. It's me. It's Ashley. I can hear her just fine.
All right. I guess it's just me.
Everybody
Okay, go ahead. I'll level through.
Okay. As stated in your letter, tonight we'll be going over water sewer revenue fund, water, sewer, solid waste, airport, and street. Back in October, we went over water sewer revenue, water and sewer. We went over the law associated with the Arkansas codes associated with water rates, water being used for other lawful purposes. We're just going to kind of revisit that, and Tina Martin's here if you have any questions. Whit's available if you have any additional questions, and you got a copy of that information in your packet today. So we're going to start with the water sewer revenue budget. You'll notice, okay, hold on a second. Okay. If you'll notice, there's 3 columns on each budget. You've got the 2020 budget, which is the budget that we passed in December of 2019 for 2020. You've got the 2020 updated budget amount, which will be your actual, it's budgeted to actual revenue, or updated to actual revenue and actual expenses. And then the 3rd column is your 2021 proposed budget. So we're trying, because at the meeting, we'll have to do an updated budget, pass an updated budget. So we're trying to get that information in this budget so we don't have to have another meeting on that. So if you'll look at your water sewer revenue budget and read the information in the bottom left-hand side. Just everybody read that, and that'll kind of refresh you from what we went over before. Okay, if you'll refer up to under other transfers, where it says to general fund in lieu of taxes, code 14-234-114. For 2021, you'll see an amount of $140,000. That's explained down here in that bottom left-hand corner, how we got that figure. And this is the first time that we have had that allocation. Okay. Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention in the 2020 updated budget, in the middle section under other transfers, you'll see sales tax liability payment. It has a 0 amount. We budgeted $81,000 and It has a zero amount for 2020 actual. We collect that revenue in water sewer revenue on the water bill. We paid it for 2020 out of water fund checking. So you're going to see that over in water fund. But going back into next year, we'll go back to paying it out of water sewer revenue. So I wanted to tell you about that change. And then you can look at your water collections, your sewer collections, your rentals and leases, your other sales and services, your interest, the O&M transfers. You can just look at all that information and you can see the changes from where we started, where we ended, and where we're going. If you want to look over that, and it'll tie back, a lot of this information will tie back to the water and the sewer budget.
Vicki, the other sales and services water revenue in and of itself is not a huge amount of money, but for that line item, it's a pretty big increase. What is that? What are those revenues?
Look in the bottom left corner under notes and see there where it says 4604 other sales and services, and it tells you there what that includes.
Okay, why was that such a large increase? I'm just curious.
Andrea, Jana?
Okay. The reason for that, it's going to fluctuate year by year depending on your construction use in the city. Any kind of new construction is going to require new meter taps, and the bigger the meters, the more that they cost. So as we have big projects, that number will be higher. If you don't have a lot of new growth, then it will actually be lower. But we had Citizens Bank that purchased a large meter. The church south of town purchased a large meter. So we've had some growth that is attributed to that increase.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one other thing, in the 2020 updated budget amount, down under O&M transfers, where it says water O&M transfer, that's a misprint, that 1,287,200. That's actually 1,197,700.
Repeat that, Vicki, please.
1,197,700. Which makes your unallocated fund balance go to $331,757. Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to water. Well, I tell you what, no, go to the next page. I'm sorry. Go to the next page after the budget. Do you have your asset account balance sheet for water sewer revenue? It shows a 12/31/20 balance of $1,024,000, $1,024,591.68. We had discussions about what to use for depreciation. Going back to that code, there was a section in there that said you needed 2 years of operating expenses. You needed enough to cover your current year and the next ensuing fiscal year. So we talked about going into this budget, designating funds to cover those items. So at the end of 12/31/20, this checking account had that balance. And if you'll see over to the right, I have a note that said that the checking account increased $389,428.84 from the 12/31/19 balance. This will kind of show us how that increase goes, because that's going to build based on what your water sewer operating expenses are. That'll build the less you spend in those funds, the more that'll build. As your revenue comes in higher, that'll build. So we can track this year to year and see how it's building. And then we put a note here that this yearly end of year account balance would go toward the 2-year operation and maintenance funds that we need to build. And that goes back to that one of those Arkansas codes. And then down at the bottom of that sheet, you'll see Arkansas Code 14-234-214, which references rates. And it basically says that you need to have rates sufficient to operation and maintenance of the waterworks system for the current fiscal year and during the fiscal year next ensuing, and that you maintain a depreciation account. And then we put a note here that we'll explore that this year and decide an amount that we want to set for depreciation. But for 2021, we recommend designating water fund CD number 33233 that has a 12/31/20 balance of $627,646.06. And you'll see that over when we get to the water fund. Any questions? Okay. And then the next page was how we got to the water increase amount, the water rate increase. We went over this at the October 26th meeting. And then the next page is showing your sewer rate increase information. And then the other information was just what I sent you on the codes. And then, as I stated in the cover letter, in water and sewer, some of the proposed amounts changed based on the fact that we did this budget after we had all of our actual numbers. Any questions? Okay. We'll go to water. Okay, in the water fund budget, you'll see a different line item up here that says general revenue. And this is some specific money that came into the water fund checking. So we recognize this revenue here. Now, I did not look at the other miscellaneous to see what that was. Would you go back down my computer and print like just a general ledger, or click on that and see what that is if they want to know? See that underwater, the other up at the very top, that other miscellaneous. Will you click on that? We got.
Hey Vicky, I think that the other miscellaneous, I think that's where we accidentally paid something out of water, and general fund had to reimburse water because you paid it in 19 and we reimbursed it in 20.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you remember
right.
to the judges thing.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. I could
You're
not
welcome.
remember what that was and I didn't look. And then we had some CARES Act money that came in for supplies and materials due to COVID. And then going into 2021, we are going to have a departmental reimbursement. Now, Ashley, I'm going to let you explain this, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you understand it better than I do.
Okay, so in order to track maintenance on our vehicles and equipment better this year, so we can keep track of how much each vehicle is actually costing us, we're going to start implementing this new process. So anytime any of the departments have a vehicle worked on by the city mechanic, they're going to be billed for the labor and any parts that are used from our warehouse inventory. And then that fund that has a vehicle worked on will reimburse the cost to whatever fund it is. So water and sewer are where our two mechanics are paid from. The head mechanic is paid from sewer, so you're going to see that that number is going to be slightly higher than this one. And the water, our assistant mechanic is paid out of water, so you're going to see it's a little higher there. Now, our warehouse inventory for warehouse supplies, we break that up quarterly into water, sewer, solid waste, and streets. So those are the four funds that'll be reimbursed for the costs of the maintenance. If any warehouse inventory, like I said, is used, it'll reimburse those. And then the water and sewer will receive the labor cost for the mechanic's time working on the vehicles. And like I said, this will help us track how much each vehicle is actually costing us in maintenance. And if it gets to where the maintenance costs are just more than what the vehicle is worth, then we can know that and we can, act accordingly. So any questions about that?
And each,
I have a
go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
okay. So does each department get billed for the repair on
Yes,
their
it's
vehicle?
gonna be water, sewer, streets, solid waste, police, fire, and parks, because those and senior citizen center, because those are the ones that actually have vehicles and equipment that are worked
Okay.
on. Yeah,
Okay.
the only one that
Okay.
doesn't, I think, is cemetery, because it doesn't have
Okay.
any.
Vehicles.
Okay. So each department will be billed, and
Mhm.
then the other departments outside of water and sewer will reimburse water and sewer. Is that right?
Well, it's so like I said, our warehouse supplies are broken up quarterly: water, sewer, solid waste, street. So the first quarter is water, the second
Right.
quarter is sewer. So say a sewer vehicle is worked on in the first quarter,
Okay.
it may not reimburse the sewer mechanic's time, but it will still reimburse the water mechanic's time and any warehouse supplies that are billed in water for that quarter. So it really just depends on which quarter it's in. So sometimes it'll be water, sometimes it'll be sewer. Parts of it, the mechanic's time will be water and sewer, and then sometimes the warehouse supplies will be reimbursed to streets or solid waste, depending on what quarter you're in. But yes, the mechanic's time, that'll always be in water or sewer.
I want to
Okay.
say, we will still know what monies were spent on, say, a sewer vehicle that was repaired during sewer's quarter.
Yes, it'll still be on the invoice. We just
We'll
won't
still be able to
shift the
track
money.
expenses.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That was my question really is, um, since the mechanics are in water and sewer, would you still be able to track the expense associated with those vehicles?
Yes, we're still going to keep track of it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
All right, and that's what that departmental reimbursement would be. And then you'll see the O&M transfer that would come from water sewer revenue. You'll see what we start, the three comparisons. And then you'll see the sales tax liability that'll be in 2020. And that's the one I was telling you that we paid out of water instead of water sewer revenue, but it'll go back and be out of water sewer revenue. And then you get to your normal operating expenses in water. And then you'll see each section and you can see across the comparisons. When you get down to the last section for maintenance of equipment and structures, the 5505 number, that's going to be for the expenses of the mechanics and the warehouse supplies. That when you do have to reimburse, that'll be the expense number, coming out of the fund. And then the top number up there will be the revenue number where it's receipted in. And that's the only change to the revenue and expense numbers. Any questions? And I know this is a lot of information and you may have some questions later.
Vicki, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In the maintenance of equipment structures, 5603, we budgeted 15,000 in 2020. We didn't spend very much, but yet we have 50,000 budgeted in 2021, and I don't see where there's any tank washouts scheduled for this year. So I was just curious where the need was for that particular figure.
Hey, Charlie, are you on here?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that did we put that in there for when there's some work that needs to be done to the intermodal tank?
Yes, ma'am. We done one last year.
But that's
And then
only
we done
like
one.
$1,000.
Do what, Paige?
The work on that tank is only going to be about $3,000. Unless, of course, they have to charge us extra to change the light out at the top of the tower.
Because we have down here intermodal tank housing chlorinator and washout. And I know we increased it due to some of that because we didn't know what some of that would cost. And we can reduce it if we don't need that much. We can drop it down.
Was that tank serviced this past year? Was it washed out and cleaned out this past year?
Intermodal?
Yes.
No.
Okay. It said it was scheduled in 2019. Did we do it in 2000?
It was due in 2019, and I asked him to do it in 20. Oh, wait a minute. No, that one was actually due in 2020, wasn't it, Vicki?
I've
Yes.
got 2019 on here, but that may be wrong on our part.
We
We
do
can
in
change
2020, and we're a month late getting it done. They're coming this month to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
We'll change that on our list, 2020.
Now, we need to check that. I think that it's 2020.
okay.
Okay.
Because we got Burlington also done this past year, and I thought we were on time for it.
Yes, we got
Yes.
Burlington tank finished in 2019.
Okay. So if we have to do the washout plus any maintenance, I mean, what does that cost look like?
I don't know. Do y'all, Charlie, Vicki?
I don't.
What was the question?
Washout.
What was the question again?
Washout and maintenance costs for a water tank at Intermodal.
Isn't it about
That I'm not for sure.
washout? I think it's $1,500 to $2,000 for a washout. But I believe when we were preparing this, Charlie, on that first conversation we all had, that we left it increased because we weren't sure exactly what was going to be entailed when we did the housing and if we had to do the chlorinator at the intermodal tank. I believe was our initial conversation.
Oh, it may be having to put an extra chlorinator there.
I know there's something about a chlorinator there, and we weren't sure about the cost, what all that would entail. Because the washouts are around I don't think they're really any more than $2,000. I think they're about $1,500 to $2,000 for a washout itself.
Vicki.
But I believe it's the intermodal tank. Yes.
Al, did you want to say something?
I think that's
I want to ask Vicki a question. How many tanks are scheduled to be washed out in 21?
If you will go to your second page, there's a little water department schedule. We're trying to build schedules into each budget. It's part of budgets going forward that will have different types of schedules, different types of permits. This will help us in budgeting, and then this will help and knowing when things are due. Yes, ma'am?
The answer is one, Al. Only one
Yeah.
tank
Okay.
is scheduled for this year.
It'd be
Okay,
intermodal.
all right.
We'll change that to 2020. Any other questions? Okay. All right, and then the second page was that schedule. And this will be an ever-going build here on this. And then the third page is your proposed salary schedule, labor cost for the water department for 2021. And then the next page is your asset account balances for the water fund. It shows your water fund checking balance and the 2 CDs. And then over to the side, we have that excess money in the water fund checking, and we could use that if we've had some unexpected operational expenses. Then the water CD number, that's the AT&T lease, that's designated for tank maintenance. And then the water CD number 33233, that's the one I was talking about earlier that we would designate for water fund depreciation. And then once we actually set an amount, we can add to that as needed. We can watch how much water sewer revenue is growing and increasing, and we can take some of that money and add to this once we get to a certain point in water sewer revenue. And then the last sheet is your revenue, statement of revenue and expenditures for the water department for 2020. Any questions? All right. The next one we'll do will be sewer. And down bottom, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can kind of glance over that. It kind of gives an explanation of some of the expenses. And then in the general revenue section at the top of the budget, got the CARES Act reimbursement money that we got. And then the departmental reimbursement funds that will receive in 2021. And then your operational expenses. Have any questions about any of those, just let me know. Okay. The next page. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's the same for both water and sewer. Salaries are up 15%. Is that adding people or is that just increases in salary? But that does not include benefits, is that correct?
What was the first part of that question, Mark?
Right. So we're budgeting from the actual year-ending number in salaries. That's a 15% increase, basically in both water and sewer. So is that increase from adding people or pay increases or benefits? What's driving that increase?
Patty, can you answer that? It's probably a little bit of all of that, but I'll let Patty speak.
Yes, it's a combination, like Paige was saying, for salaries increasing, for people getting like their retention raises, and there were a few people who were awarded merit increases. Other than that, are you talking about like the whole section or just like that 50 5101 number for salaries.
So you look at the 5101 number,
Uh-huh.
and I'm looking at water.
Water.
Shows we spent 265,000 salaries, okay? But we got budgeted 305,000 for the new year. My question is,
Yeah,
and that's just salaries, that's not benefits or anything. So is that just because we're adding people, or is that raises to the current staff, or both? Because it's not benefits, because you got that broke out in other items.
No, just that number, the 5101, has to do with where people will be based on their retention raises on the pay scale going into next year.
Okay.
That's what that takes into account.
And the fact that minimum wage went up.
Oh yeah, and minimum wage went up.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right, the second page there is the sewer department schedules. And there's costs associated with annual permits. And then you have the third page is your labor cost for 2021. And then the next page is your asset account balances as of 12/31/24, the sewer fund. And I just put a note there that the CDs have been set up through the years with checking account funds. When funds would build up in the checking account, CDs would be purchased. And that's how those got established. And they are, their balance right now, the O&M transfer for 2021 for sewer is 768,220, and we have 740,581, so we almost have a year's worth of expense cost in that fund. And then the last sheet is your sewer department statement of revenue and expenditures for 2020. Any other questions? All right, next will be solid waste. You have your, let's see, I thought I had another. You have your revenue at the top. It received $243 in CARES Act reimbursement. You have your departmental reimbursement for 2021. And then you just follow it down and it shows your expenses. There's notes down at the bottom. It tells you what your other sales and services revenue includes, what your permits and some supplies and contracts, some general expenditure information. Okay. The second page is your schedule for the solid waste department. And you'll see there that we still, every year we put in the compost irrevocable contract of obligation, and we have a transfer station irrevocable contract of obligation that we budget. All right, and then the next page is the solid waste projected revenue 2021 for the rating. Okay. And the next page is the solid waste fund labor cost. And then the next page is your asset account balances for solid waste. And again, those CDs were set up through the years with solid waste checking account funds. And then the last page here is your solid waste statement of revenue and expenditures. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay. We'll move to the airport. Same thing, bottom left-hand corner has some information there. And then it has your revenue and your operational expenses. All right, the second page is a permit, and we will be building on this page. And we'll check those numbers, see if they're supposed to be the same number. But we'll be building on this sheet this year. And then the next page is your labor cost. And then you have the next page is your asset account balances for 12/31/20. And then you have your statement of revenue and expenditures for 2020.
I'm on if there's any questions about the airport. Also, Mayor, we do need to fix the intermodal water tank light.
Yeah, I know.
So, and I might mention our account balance is down a little bit, or a good bit, but Vicky's paid for some pretty good sized grants that we will get the money back once we process them, get a return check back and send for the grant money. Also, I'd like to mention while I'm talking about it is just this past Saturday, we lost James Barnett, 30-something year airport manager. And the airport commission will get to work on how we're going to handle it. The mayor has a person there now to man the fort at the airport. It's not a good time as Gene Kemp's stepdaughter passed away also this week. So when there's a little bit of healing and time, the airport commission will get engaged and work with the mayor and come up with some solutions to how we go forward. But airport's in good financial shape, and any questions I'd be happy to answer.
Well, I do have a couple of questions. I was just looking at personnel. the proposed budget for 2021 and the salaries? Did we hire somebody, or is that same as we were talking about a few moments ago, increase?
Part of it was an additional seasonal worker is part of it. When we had James up until a week ago, he did some of the mowing, and we had a part-time seasonal worker do some of the bush hogging, and we were doing some other maintenance type items with a second seasonal worker. So we'll have to work that out and see how we handle it.
Is that how retirement got down almost $1,000? I mean, I'm not nitpicking, I'm just trying to see. Retirement went down? Or am I looking at the wrong thing?
No, you're looking
I'll
at.
defer to Vicky.
Are you looking at your proposed operating budget, Carissa? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at the expenses personnel, and I was just looking at 5106, the budget for 2020 and then the proposed.
Okay. I believe that what happened is we just over budgeted for that line item in airport for 2020 because Mr. Barnett would have been the only full-time benefited employee at the airport. As far as I'm aware, that position has always been the only benefited position, and he did not receive any type of an increase. He didn't receive any type of a pay increase last year in his salary. So
Okay.
it has to be that we just over budgeted. We entered a higher amount in there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I might mention real quick that the airport is self-sufficient, so our hangar rent and fuel sales income pays all our expenses. So we're not dependent on the city for funds, which is a really, really good thing. And several years back, I came to the city council for a match for a grant, and y'all gave it to increase hangars and things. And I told you back then that at some point I would be able to come to you and say, we don't need money, and we're there now. An example is Vicky's paid a couple $100,000 in payments, and we'll get that money back in grants. And I didn't come and ask you for the matching funds. And we should be able to continue to do that going forward, is match most of our grants unless we have some real big project. So, and if that happens, I'll come to you.
Oh, hold on a second. You got it. There is a question from South Ark Weather asking, is the runway project still going on?
No, it is complete. We've got the only thing left to do on the runway project is a second coat on the striping on the runway, and then it's done at that point. The weather hadn't been very acceptable to do that, but that's the only thing left on that project.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. All right, street fund. If you look at the bottom left, you have a few notes there. And then you have your revenue and your operational expenses.
Vicky.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah. I have one question, 5101 on salaries. On 2020 budget and the updated budget, And then going forward, 2021 proposed budget, $190,100. Why is that up increase?
Patty?
Yes, in 2021, we had a few employees that were long-term, that were higher paid in salaries, and they retired. And so whenever they left, their positions were made into 2 cheaper labor positions. And so that is why there's an increase in that line item.
In 2020.
In 2020, yes, that's why there's that increase from going from 2020 into 2021.
Okay, you said how many employees retired to make that such an increase?
I am going to look and pull right now. 1 second. I'm getting that right now for you. I know Mr. Ellen Wood, our public works superintendent, he was one of them. I believe, let me see. Trying to remember off the top of my head who else was paid out of the street fund.
Patty, LM left in 19, not 20.
Oh, excuse me, then.
I think it's Mr. Kelly and Lee.
Okay, we had
Pause.
no. We had
Steve Kelly.
okay, in the 20, I'm looking at the 2021 salary sheet right now. I just pulled it up to look at it. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 5 laborers budgeted, and we had 1 operator. And so we added a warehouse clerk, and our operator left in 20, and we took that position and created 2 laborers out of it.
Okay,
So that's how we ended up where we're at. And because our pay scale, the reason it's higher for 2021's amounts is all of these salaried amounts are with the intent of us still trying to maintain our current pay scale with our retention raises. So when you have somebody who hits their year anniversary with our retention raises and our pay scale, they get their 3% increase because they get their step raise. That's on the pay scale. So that's been taken into account with these proposed budgeted amounts.
Also
okay,
minimum wage.
This under the current pay scale? Is this under the current pay scale?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So on our current pay scale right now, in any of the grades, you get a raise when you hit your first year anniversary, and then at 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years of service. So because this fund has so many new hires that started last year, that's why it shows that increase from last year to this year also, because they are new. And so they would be getting that year increase at their anniversary date.
And those are the ones that started at the step 1, grade 1, however.
Yeah, where they started on the pay scale, where they were brought in at the pay scale. Did that answer your question?
Well, yes and no, but I'll leave it for right now.
Okay.
Well, Patty, if I could just maybe get some clarification on that. Part of what I'm hearing you say is that in 2020, when we had some higher paid individuals retire, we took that opportunity to hire 2 people to replace 1 person. Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry. I was mistaken when I was saying that. Paige was correct. In 2019, they retired, and that's when that shift happened. And we
Okay.
just maintained that going into the 2020 budget. And so I pulled up what we had budgeted for our salaries in 2020, the positions, and we had 6 positions budgeted in 2020. And the operator that was budgeted, he is no longer here. And so whenever that person left, we took that position and hired another laborer. So we would have somebody to replace the operator and then also another labor position. So that gave us another person. And that person ended up being our warehouse clerk, which has been helping do inventory and help with tracking maintenance and stuff like that down at the warehouse.
Okay, so how many people in 2020 versus how many people in 2021 do these numbers represent in the street department?
All but one.
Okay, that's not what I'm asking. I mean, how many people in 2020 and then how many people in 2021? How many employees in that department?
Oh, okay. There were 6 in 2020, and there are 7 for 2021.
Okay, so the difference is probably the big part of it is because we've got 7 people versus 6.
Yes, but it's also in regards to their retention raises being figured in because they are new hires and they're eligible for that at a year. Yeah.
Sure, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
So the salary on those 1-year people that we show there, that's after their retention pay is increased?
Yes, because we always budget to the high side for salaries. Okay. So, and it's budgeted for the full year, but some of those employees will not get them, like they're not going to get them, they wouldn't have gotten them January 1, they'll get them whatever their hire date was.
Right,
yeah.
Right, I understand that. Okay.
Yeah.
But that salary on the budget on that is the actual showing what their rate would be after their 1-year retention.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, the next page is the permits in the street department. Then the next page is your labor costs. All right, and the next page is your asset account balances for 12/31 of 2020. Now, if you would for me, read that paragraph at the bottom of that page, and then we'll clarify. Okay, for the purposes of clarification, that very last sentence, we're going to start there. The January 1, 17, now I put here to June 30th of 2023, but I believe that should say December the 31st of 2023, because when we did the initial funding for Scoggin Drive from the street department with Amendment 91 funds, it was for 7 years. And Benji, is he still on here? Or Paige, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But initially, it's my understanding that the Amendment 91 money sunsetted June the 23rd or June 30th of 23. But now that it's been extended, we'll be able to collect and designate that full 7 years for Scoggin Drive. When we first started collecting the money for the period, we started collecting it in January of 14, and we used it in the street fund for operations through 14, 15, and 16. Then when we shifted that money, we had to make preparations in the street fund for that fund to be able to function on its own before we started pulling a lot of money out of it. The money's been designated this whole time. It's not been budgeted. We put it in there and showed it coming out. We didn't use it for operations. It's all there, but we just couldn't pull it out and put it all in a CD until now. Because if you'll notice back on the street project, we're going to have to use some of the cash balance from 20 in 21 to make that budget work. So once we take the Amendment 91 money that we're going to open this CD with off of that balance, take off that allocation that we're going to have to use to make 2021 work, it's around $50,000 that fund will have in its checking account if we receive all the funding we have budgeted for 21. So we're still going to be very cautious and careful and watch that balance. But I just wanted to let you know what was going on with that CD, revisit that funding. Any questions? And Paige, do you have your letter there on that Amendment 91 that I gave you today so that we can tell them what we based our collection on? Do you have that paper?
Let me look. Hang on.
Okay. I had mine. Hang on, I found mine.
Okay.
When we originally projected the revenue for Amendment 91, from Amendment 91 monies from Scoggin Drive, we figured it on $185,000 a year for 7 years, which came up, and we've obligated Amendment 91 money to that project in the amount of $1,295,000, which is $185,000 for 7 years. For the period of 17, 18, 19, and 20, we have actually collected $863,757.54. If you take that $185,000 projection and do it for 40 years, so you can compare what you've collected to what you projected, it's $740,000. So we've collected more to date, $123,757.54 more to date than we projected. So that's just to let you know we're ahead of where we had projected that we would be at this particular moment in time. Any questions? Okay. And then your last page in the street fund is your statement of revenue and expenditures. And that's it. That's all the funds we'll be going over tonight. I know that's a lot of information. And when we get to the council meeting and we have the final 2021 budget to pass and the updated budget to pass, you will get those in individual, you'll have individual budgets. It'll be these numbers. If you see here in your 2020 updated column, that's what'll be on your updated budget to pass. And the 2021 proposed will be what you have on your single budget per fund to pass at the 26th meeting, the meeting on the 26th. if you have any questions about any of this between now and then, once you kind of look over it, go over it, see the format, just let us know. And if we find something that we need to change, an error or an adjustment or something, we'll let you know it before that. Right.
Everybody good?
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what?
Back on the water fund, the 5603, did y'all want us to, did we need to change that? Or were we just gonna leave it alone? The $50,000? Because they had asked if we had anything that would cost that much. Are we gonna lower that number or leave it
Let's
alone?
leave it alone until I figure it out.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to make sure that our years are correct on our washouts and our inspections. And the inspection's a lot cheaper than some other services that we might need. I want to check that first.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we
think
should,
it,
what, Vicki?
I think it tied back to conversations basically on the intermodal tank, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. That's all we have, unless you have any questions, or just let us know if you do.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up and being engaged.
Next meeting's next Tuesday, right?
Yes, Tuesday at 5:30.
And we'll do the same format. Let's again try to get on at 5 so that we're sure everybody can get on and we can work out any glitches between 5 and 5:30. And, you know, then we'll be ready to go at 5:30.
And we'll be doing the general fund, which is admin, police, fire, district court, senior citizen center, cemetery, park, and 1 cent sales tax. Okay.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
y'all.
job.
Everybody have a
Thank
good
y'all.
night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.